Hey, this is Akhtar and welcome to episode 1 of our Digimon Tamers Review series. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at the US Digivolving Growlmon to WarGrowlmon figure. Starting off in Growlmon mode, it's definitely the weaker of the two modes. Firstly, the glaring negatives. It has a hollow head, there is obvious WarGrowlmon neck kibble, and there is a ton of missing paint. Not only do we not have any of that lovely gold digicode that is at least thankfully sculpted in, a ton of black lines and markings are just not there. The only real excusable missing paint apps are the black tips of his claws, as WarGrowlmon's claws are completely white. The same is true for the Japanese figure, but as you can see, even though it still has some missing paint apps, the Japanese version has far more paint on it. Moving on, unlike the Japanese version that is simply riddled with joints, the articulation of the US version is very bad. It only has very basic swivel joints in the arms, the elbows, the legs, and feet. However, looking at them side by side, there are quite a number of things that the US version does better than the Japanese one. Yeah, I know, right? Firstly, I would say that proportion-wise and in terms of general appearance, it's much closer to the on-screen character. While he doesn't look nearly as intimidating or bulky, that's actually more accurate to the show. In addition, unlike the Japanese version, he only has one set of ears, and his arm blades are correctly positioned at the bottoms of his arms instead of off to the sides. So hats off to the US version. Since I did say that the Growlmon mode was the weaker of the two modes, things can only get better from here. Card Slash! Matrix Evolution! Starting off with the arms, we extend the blades, unpack them, flip them around, rotate them up the arm, and repack them into place. Unpack the middle claw, rotate it around, and pack it back into place. With the arms done, we can now focus on the rest of the body. We first split apart Growlmon's head to review WarGrowlmon's head, grab the back and put it back on these two hinges. Take out the armor pieces that are stored in the back. Rotate out WarGrowlmon's hairpiece and this accompanying joint, and replace them with the two halves of Growlmon's head. Slide out these two verniers on the armor pieces and rotate them up. Fold up this connector piece that will be used to secure the armor pieces in place and rotate WarGrowlmon's hairpiece around. And last but not least, we bring the two armor pieces forwards, connect them together, pack them into the torso, and pack them into the connector piece. And here the figure is in WarGrowlmon mode, and frankly, it looks good. While the Japanese version does have better arms, better paint, and better articulation, and of course die-cast armor parts, the US version is about better in almost every other regard. The head is more accurate in terms of its coloration, the boosters are correctly placed more closer together, his hair is silver instead of red, the armor is one solid piece, and the arm blades are the correct shape. It's a darn good looking WarGrowlmon mode, and the articulation remains relatively unchanged. It's really cool how they designed the arms so that the shoulder joints are not hindered by the extra armor. But as you know, being made by Bandai of America, they just had to mess it up somewhere. While I'd like to say that having parts forming claws was the worst of it, the fact of the matter is that this figure has a couple of fragile joints that can break very, very easily, and sadly that's going to be a running theme throughout this review series. Firstly, we have these sets of hinges that can be very, very easily overstressed by forcing these halves too far open. But more egregiously, these hinges that the armor pieces connect to are hanging on by a very, very thin piece of plastic. Catch your finger on them accidentally or pull on them the wrong way or fold them out too far and off they come. And they are not that easy to fix either, being so close to so many joints. Believe me, I broke mine and I had a really hard time trying to fix them. The thing is, issues like these are rather inexcusable, as they could have been very easily caught during the designing and production phases. In conclusion, while I initially dismissed this Growlmon figure as being inferior to the Japanese version, it's actually far better than I give it credit for. Essentially, if you want a better looking and more playable figure, get the Japanese version. If you want a better representation of the character for display, I'd recommend the US version. Just know what you're getting yourself into in terms of the lack of details and articulation and easily broken parts. If you're getting your figure second-hand, do make sure to check if the figure is broken or not. So, this is Aika saying, see you guys in the next episode of our Digimon Tamers series of reviews.